We're here at Verticon 2026 at the Robinson Helicopter exhibit to learn a lot more about their new division, Robinson Unmanned. Robinson Unmanned is a new division of Robinson Helicopter. And Paul, tell us, what is Robinson Unmanned going to be doing?
Well, it is a new division, but we've been part of Robinson for a couple of years, since 2024, as Ascent Aerosystems. So we've rebranded as, become a division as Robinson Unmanned. And what that does is it brings our more than 10 years of experience in unmanned technologies and expands that into a very deliberate strategy towards a full system, a full fleet of unmanned systems. To be clear, it's not a group of products, it is a tiered ecosystem of unmanned system capabilities. And together we're delivering American-made unmanned system capabilities that's affordable to users both on the commercial and on the defense side.
This is the first company that's really done this on a commercial scale.
That's right.
And so tell us how the Ascent products fit in with what is basically an uncrewed helicopter.
Let me give you a good use case. So right now on our smaller platform, on our Spartan or our Spirit, we have a multispectral camera that's used for agriculture.
Okay.
So it uses light to identify plant health based on the spectrum that our eyesight can't see. We also have the Spray Hawk that can really dial in spraying. So using those two things in combination could potentially allow farmers to get more efficiency out of the crops that they're already growing. That's just one case where those two things can be used in tandem.
So David, tell us why Robinson Helicopter wanted to start this unmanned division.
Sure, so a couple big things in the world are happening. One of the biggest is the world needs people who can build dependable mass scale. We have aerospace grade production processes, great supply chain skills, and a lot of people. So we can make a lot of product that can meet this need for capability that can be swarmed, delivered in rapid succession, mass casualty evacuations or mass support of deploying emergency relief goods, whatever. That capability is in need for civil purposes. Also the big topic of contested logistics. Those can be done either with enormous aircraft that are exquisite and expensive, or you can do it with attritable assets that to the government look at it as less than a couple $1,000,000. The thing in the end, if it needed to sacrifice itself to protect manned aircraft or ground vehicles or whatever, you can fly this thing and protect by just sacrificing, right? That capability opens up so many opportunities for the defense markets. So yeah, we're excited to lend our expertise in manufacturing things. In our now 2-year experience owning Ascent Aerosystems, that team gave us good insight into the needs of the unmanned world, and so those things together of capability and now experience in unmanned, we're uniquely qualified to do this.
So give a couple of examples of how the turbine truck might be used. Like, I know you could use it to carry this.
Yes, it's a Marine Corps JMIC, and it's a standardized box. It can carry up to 3,000 pounds. We won't put 3,000 pounds in the turbine truck, but maybe we'll put it in that one. And the idea is that we can build something that can carry cargo easily loaded, done in a way that is highly repeatable so you can focus on ground operations. So cargo transportation certainly is an enormous need, civil and defense. You can imagine oil and gas, you can imagine where they bring small bits of drill bits or core samples, and they pay a lot of money to move that from an offshore rig to a land site. Same thing if you're looking at the medical field where you're looking at moving tissue samples or blood samples or resupply for blood. Whole industry is built on organ transplants, and this can meet effectively the entire mission profile of some missions in the middle mile of others, So it's a really effective way to get things moved without some of the liability of the human carrying piece, some of the mission constraints that come with human carrying, and definitely you take a lot more payload when you pull some of the human side out.
So when you have a helicopter like this that comes from a commercial market or a commercial development, do the maintenance requirements change at all?
So you're onto one of my favorite topics of this, which is our industry, all of the industry, but ours has a way to do this that's unique. When you get to the end of an overhaul life, many of the components are thrown away. They're cut up, they're sawed up, they're recycled. They recycle as much as they can, but it's a lot of waste, a lot of energy wasted. We know from proven experience, under the right circumstances and with the right tolerance for risk, at the end of a manned life, any of these aircraft, those components could potentially have a second life used in unmanned services. So I think there is a really significant opportunity to make our entire industry a little more sustainable, a little more thoughtful about the use of materials and resources. So you may see things like reuse of blades from manned into unmanned, progressively accepting the risk that the blades have more vulnerability at those kind of longer lives. So, but we've seen it in cases where the blades are exquisitely maintained and very carefully thought through. They make longer lives, but there are so many things in the manned space that make that the wrong decision from a risk perspective. But in unmanned, people may accept that. So that's certainly something we're looking at. The other question about maintenance that otherwise have very similar maintenance, same servicing, same oil, same fluids, all the things you'd expect. And we'd expect that the heritage of having, in this case, 2.5 million flight hours in the R66 and like 35, 40 million hours on the R44 gives us a confidence that those service maintenance instructions all keep an aircraft airworthy over a long, long time.
But if you're using these end-of-life components on an unmanned vehicle,
yes,
that could inform future developments.
That's exactly right.
Life extensions.
Exactly right. And a really key part of that is we'll use these aircraft with higher degrees of data off-board and data transmission, so we'll know everything about their usage spectrum and how you see torque cycling and you see landing cycling. You count much more precisely than you do in the manned world today. Most of the aircraft in the entire industry are left to logbook entries as your primary method of counts and things like that. We believe that the future will be unlocked by some of that data. So unmanned is a huge opportunity to gather data at a very high cadence and very significant volume.
So does the R88 have a potential role in the unmanned side?
Absolutely. We've been approached already since we made the unveil. People can see through the sort of the short term versus the long term. Long term, all of our products were built with unmanned in our DNA, with the intent that an 88 could be an autonomous firefighting aircraft right alongside manned firefighting aircraft. So the ability for us to take an aircraft like this, that you put 2 or 3 of these together, they can lift and move the water of the biggest helicopters in the industry, and you can do it at a faster paced, much more choreographed way. Single pilot flies the whole fleet potentially, or maybe a crew, but enough to where you can imagine that the other aircraft are following the main aircraft. So it's a lead-follow relationship in that model, and so pilots still have a tremendous role in those missions, but the amplification of unmanned is really well demonstrated in a master and a follower model, you know.
And with much lower risk to human life.
That's the belief, is that I think we see these missions as necessary, and there's no better way to do it than a helicopter, but there are ways we can de-risk a lot of the most challenging corners of the risk, you know. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. Agriculture is a big one like that. We think that there's already a difficulty getting enough ag pilots to service all the needs in the world. And it's going to be more difficult. Once the Ukraine-Russia conflict ends, Ukraine needs to get back into a very heavy ag, their huge ag market. And I think we want to help them achieve that. And maybe some of these unmanned aircraft can help support them as those are primarily remotely piloted, you know, and would be something where one pilot could fly multiple aircraft back to back and be more efficient with their time, you know, and lower risk.
And there's going to be a lot of Ukrainian drone pilots.
There will be. They will be very well proven.
Exactly.